So my name is Andrew. For those of you that haven't met me yet, I'm responsible for training here at Hostaway. We handle webinars, office hours on usually on Thursday. Today, exceptionally, we are having one on the Friday, right? Um, Common questions always asked is the office hours are recorded, so if you can attend, that is great. If you cannot attend in real time, you can just register. You're going to get the recording anyway, right? The recording goes out 24 hours later for everybody that registered, right? So whether you attended or not, you're going to get the link to watch the webinar later, right? This is a practical session, and we like to show things, how to get things done. And not only questions are available on the Q&A, but they're also encouraged, right? So the more questions you ask, more engaging it becomes and more interesting it becomes for everyone, right? So please use the Q&A to post any questions that you have about the subject. All right? So with that said, I'm going to pass the word to Amanda Martins from Safely. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for being here with us once again and to talk about insurance, right? And how to protect uh, short term rental investments with insurance.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I love this part of my job. I'm the vice president of business development, so I wear a ton of hats and I can answer kind of any of your questions across the board. But when it comes to safely, I'm personally I'm really passionate about helping property managers grow and really find the right things for their business, and that's kind of a reflection of Safely and why I'm so proud to be part of this company. But, I'll with that, I do have some slides, so I'm gonna share my screen so you don't have to just hear me talking. You can actually see what I've got going on, not just hearing my words, and I just sent a request to share. So 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds is a long time. It will not take 30 seconds. Let's see. All right. And we're gonna go here. So, we are very proud to back Hostaway's Insurance. So we are it's Hostaway Insurance, powered by Safely. So, what is Safely? Well, like I said, it's in the name. We are an insurance company. We're the preferred when you have a reservation, we're that preferred primary insurance. Whenever you have a guest in your home, we cover guest caused damage to contents and dwelling. We have this amazing integration that with Hostaway, where you can sign up and manage your claims and your coverage right there in your Hostaway account. And again, like I said at the beginning, we're only really active when a guest is staying in your home. Now, then the second piece, of course, it's not a good insurance product without a really, really awesome claims process. And like I said, you can file your claims right within your Hostaway account. We're not making you fight with OTAs. We're covering all of your booking channels if that's what you choose. Most of our customers do. You have up to 60 days to file your claims with us. So, once the guest leaves, you still have up to 60 days to start that claim instead of that kind of uncomfortable 14-day window that, a lot of our competitors will give you and things like air cover. Um, we pay claims really quickly, so 90% of our claims are paid in less than 4 business days, and actually, claims that are less than $1,000 are typically paid in a day, 1 business day, which is really fast. And then again, it only takes once you've gathered all of your documents, it just takes a few minutes to file your claims within your Hostaway account. So, I'm gonna start this off first, with, one quick question from Andrew. Andrew, before I get into it, I'd love to ask you about your, any feedback you've gotten on guest reviews. Like, how important are guest reviews to property managers?
Well, I would say it's one of the most important things nowadays, right? Because guests are paying attention. Actually, e-commerce in general, right? So even if you're selling a product, reviews are extremely important. We see that on Amazon and everything. But with the OTAs, that's especially important, right? And it's highly relevant because, let's say, for example, you're taking your family, to a house, right? You want to make sure that you're providing the best experience to your family, right? You don't want to go to a place where, I don't know, there is cleaning issues, for example, right, that have been reported before. So it is extremely important because the guests are looking into that and they're paying attention and they decide to book according to the reviews, right? So that's a big blocker. And the other very important part of it is the algorithms, right? So if you have bad reviews, you can expect that, for example, we are talking about OTAs here, right? So you can expect that your property will not perform as well as a property that doesn't have bad reviews, right? So it is extremely important, and every property manager knows that, right? That reviews, requesting reviews, managing reviews, going after what is causing that. And we have many tools here, that I can show later on, on Hostaway that we have specifically for reviews, just to make sure that we don't miss any opportunity, right, with our property managers to control and monitor bad reviews, work on that, make sure that they collect as many good reviews as possible. But sometimes we all know, right? There is a friction with the gas, right? And especially if there is damage involved, right? Which I believe it's a, a,
Yeah.
a big, big, big part, of the help that you bring to the fold, right?
Oh, absolutely, and so you knew exactly where I was going with this. It so some of you might be wondering, okay, so where are we going with this? Why do we care about reviews when it comes to insurance, right? Um, well, part of what we do is, as an insurance company, we help you reduce that friction with your guest. With this Hostaway powered by us, powered by Safely, for your contents coverage, you have a $0 deductible. So that means that you first off, you won't even have to you might not even need damage deposits. Okay, so one that helps helps reduce the friction at checkout, and also it's less money that you have to keep from guests if something happens, if they accidentally, stain your linens, or if their kid gets hold of some markers and they mark up your really pretty white couch with some, colorful markers and that doesn't come out. That those kind of things, it's guests get kind of angry even when it's their fault. Some guests are pretty awesome, but then others won't take it too kindly if you keep their money for things that were accidents, especially. And then even so, we do I have heard stories of some irrational guests that threw a party and then they got mad that you filed a claim. They got mad at you for accusing them of throwing the party that they did, and they give you a bad review. So we know that we know that guests might not always be honest about the damage that they cause, and so we just see it as kind of a waste of time to force you to talk to the guest and get them to admit fault. So with Safely, we don't require guest involvement as well. And then you have that 60-day window to file claims. So why does this all equal better reviews? Well, with OTAs, there are certain OTAs that have their kind of built-in damage program, but with them, there's one in particular I'm thinking of where you're required to file your claim within 14 days, and you're required to talk to the guest first in order to get them to actually review the claim. So what most of our customers are doing with this particular platform is they're playing this weird game of chicken where they're waiting for the guests to review, and then they have this teeny tiny window to take to file their claim last minute. What we do is we take that process and we erase it for you. We cover your reservation, whether it comes from your direct bookings, from Airbnb, from Verbo, Booking.com to us, it doesn't matter where the guests book, we're automatically covering that. And what that does then, it protects your reviews because it's one less thing to make your guest upset about, right? So you don't so that's one thing. And then the next thing, it makes your staff happier because they're not having to fight with the guests as well. And they just simplify the operations and file claims in one spot. I think that's something that's important, that kind of it's that intangible with Safely specifically. And then the other thing that we're doing.
Sorry,
Go
Amanda,
ahead. Yeah.
before you continue, it's still on the same topic, right?
Yeah,
Because
go for it.
we without insurance, right? So the options are you can charge a damage deposit, right? And then refund the guest after they leave, right? There is a cost involved, right? So especially if you're processing the payment and everything, right? And
Mhm.
you're losing sales, right? Because your price has increased, by the damage deposit that you're charging, right? So at the end of the sales process, right? So when the guest comes to book, they believe you're too expensive, even though you're going to get refunded later. You have to come up with the money up front. The other one is pre-authorization, and pre-authorization, you know, the most common one, uh, payment processor, in about 7 days, they release the money,
Yeah.
right? So not only about the reviews, but there is also this kind of the chicken game and the money game, following the money or becoming too expensive or increasing your operational costs. But yes, definitely, without having to capture the money, or to keep the money, that you have already charged, yes, that reduces a lot of friction that can have a bad review as a consequence. One of the consequences, right? Not only talking about the damage, but yeah, it will damage permanently, the account, right? Sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That is such a good point, and another thing, I was just speaking to property managers this week at a conference who, were talking about how they would hold the money on a credit card, and then they would have to keep some of the deposit because the guest damaged the home, but then the guest turned around and filed a chargeback with their credit card company and won the chargeback. So, they still didn't get their money, so you'd think that, "Okay, well, I'm safe because I have their credit card, I can just charge it automatically," but some guests are starting to get savvy, and they're going back to their credit card company and refuting, the charges. So, that was another thing I learned this week, that I hadn't thought about previously, so thank you for bringing that up too. Um, so then let's talk about the flip side then. What about homeowners? How important are what so a lot of your customers, a lot of the property managers here are growing their business, right? So they might have 5 homes this week that they're managing, but they might have 20 homes in a year or 30 homes in a year. How important are you hearing how important is protecting the homeowner's home to the homeowner?
Well, they look for insurance, right? So this is
Yeah.
if it, this is the only way, right? So you'll have to go after anything, that might offer an additional protection here, because we all know that the property could be a very valuable asset, right? And it's not easy, to control any damage, that might happen there. So yeah, it
Yeah,
is
and it Mhm.
it is a difficult game, right? It is a difficult market, to rely, because you always have strangers come back and forth, right?
Yeah, exactly, you have strangers and homeowners tend to kind of expect the worst too. So, and we know that, we've heard that story over and over again, which I guess what I'm getting at is, part of what we do at Safely is for this program, we print out, professionally printed, co-branded brochures for you to help showcase to your existing homeowners and to your prospective homeowners those extra steps that you're taking to protect their assets, to protect their home. And these are free. Like I said, they come with this program. All you have to do is give us your logo and some information like your company name and contact information, and we'll print these out and give you a digital and physical copy. And a lot of our customers will use these really as part of their growth tool. I had two different stories I'd like to tell you. Is one, I had a customer. I personally onboarded her at 6 homes with Safely, and, she called me up a year later, and she was at 25 homes in just a year, and all excited because she had just, hired her first on-the-ground property manager for her company. That's kind of life-changing, right? And I can't say it was 100% because of Safely, but she absolutely used this as part of her value add to kind of distinguish herself against her competitors and professionalize herself. Then another property
It does look
yeah,
more professional, right?
yeah,
It does look like someone that cares about the asset, right,
yeah.
that the property owner has, you know, but
Exactly.
it was not easy to get there, right? So anything that you can show, more attention, more protection, I believe it will make a difference, right? To
Oh,
decide between, as a property owner, to decide between one property manager and another one, right?
exactly. It just kind of steps you up just a notch, and shows that you're taking extra care in their home. So if you're willing to do this, what other things are you willing to do as a property manager? And what other details are you looking into and caring about to protect their home and to even like bring money in for them that's going to distinguish their listings as well. So
Okay.
that's something I love that we do. I'd love to. Okay, so like that's all sounds great, but what is this? What's actually covered? What are we doing here? Right? So it's really simple. We're covering guest caused damage. And what does that translate to? For example, we're covering pet damage. That does include pet damage, whether it's a pet friendly home or not. Okay. And the difference here, pet damage, is more like if a dog, uses the restroom on the floors, if it chews up some couches. I've got pictures later if we have time, I can show you some of the weird things pets have done, that kind of thing. Extra hair on a couch is not considered pet damage. That's just kind of like an extra, little it's extra cleaning, so that's not really covered. But this is really when they like actually damage the home. We do cover smoke remediation too. So I like to call this out because it's not a typical physical damage that you can see. You can't really take pictures of a smoke smell. Um, but if somebody smokes in your home and you have to call in then you call in a professional smoke remediation company, that kind of a thing is covered. We also cover guest theft. With guest theft, we require a police report, so we're not covering mysterious disappearances. This is a wild example was we had a customer. We had not we One of our customers had a guest uh, had the audacity to pull up a U-Haul to the house, empty as much of the contents into the U-Haul, and drove away. And that was a little wild. I don't wanna scare you because that is so uncommon, but it's just a very, I guess, visual example. Another one was, somebody stole the entire Bose surround sound system, but those, require police reports, and we were able to cover those as well. And then we have stupidity. We we also like to call this vacation brain. This is just accidental things that, people just become a little bit more careless when they are on vacation. They don't necessarily treat other people's homes like they treat their own home, and they relax a little bit too much sometimes. And then this other piece is kind of unique to us too. Most insurance policies don't cover intentional damage. What I mean by that is if I want a new cell phone, I can't just take a hammer to my cell phone and then expect the insurance company to pay out, right? Because it's my insurance and I did it on purpose. But what we do, because you, the property manager, are the insured party, it wasn't your intention for the guests to throw a party, to take a baseball bat to your television. So we can actually cover that when a guest breaks your rules and they intentionally damage things in your home. That does set us apart pretty distinctly from some of our competitors, and other solutions that you might have. Again, that's reducing that friction with your guests, so you're not having to have those awkward conversations. Um, So, okay, that sounds all too good to be true. What's not covered? Okay. We're not covering bodily injury. So this is not a liability policy. This is damage only, and it's guest caused damage only. We're not covering if your homeowner stays in their own home and they burn up their own kitchen. That's their own, that's on their own policies, right? This is only for guests, not for your homeowners in their own home. We're not covering, acts of nature, so a lot of these things are kinda things that standard homeowner policies would cover or flood insurance and whatnot. We don't cover acts of nature, hurricanes, that kind of thing. And we're not covering maintenance issues, so wear and tear, things that just so happen to break down in the home. That's going to be your guarantees on your, like, if your dishwasher happens to break down when the guest is in the home, that's not covered. But if their child uses the door as a trampoline and it breaks off, that is a covered loss. So we do consider that damage, and we have seen that. I know it's very specific because it's very real. um, One thing that's not on here that I also like to call out is we don't cover mysterious disappearances. So we cover theft, not mysterious disappearances. So if a few towels happened to no longer be there, right, when the guest leaves, unless the guest said, "I'm so sorry, I damaged your towel, I threw it away," unless they on their own removed the mystery by telling you, and you can take a screenshot of that conversation. um, Otherwise, it's not covered if it just so happens to be missing. Um, you really are gonna be we're gonna be covering missing things that you're willing to file a police report for. Um, or
Well,
if the
I'm
guest.
sorry, Amanda, but
Yeah,
this,
go ahead.
I believe you're addressing one of the questions that we have here. How do
Oh,
you
really?
know if the host is being truthful? Right? I believe you just answered that, right? So if you have a screenshot of a conversation, if you have a police report, right? I
Mhm.
believe that that would be more than a proof, right? That something was did not mysteriously disappear, right?
Correct.
Something happened. There was a damage. It was caused by a gas, right?
Mhm.
I believe this is exactly, to draft. I cannot say the name. It was anonymous questions, but thanks for
Yeah.
the question anyway.
Yeah, and I'll answer it in another way too. How do we know the property manager is being truthful that it was the guest that damaged something? The truth is there are some ways. There are some ways if it looks odd. We do have professional actuarials that are in-house with Safely that review claims. So there are certain tricks of the trade to see whether to check for, I guess, what you're describing as fraud. So we do look for fraud, but it's rare that fraud is actually more rare than you would expect, or you might think, which I'm happy about because most of our customers are just honest and really just want their damage to be covered, and that's what we're here for. So, we do look for it, but it's not common. It's not common, thankfully.
Yeah, you cover the majority of
Yeah,
the claims, right?
yeah. Oh, yes.
Statistically speaking, right? So
Statistically speaking, yeah.
majority of them, you got them covered, right?
I think the last number I saw was a couple days ago, something like 98.1% of claims are paid out, and the ones
Excellent.
that are not paid out fall within what you see on my screen right here. So they were outside of the 60 days window. Yeah. Yeah, so we don't deny claims that are not legitimate, and, when sometimes we'll ask questions if the information's not clear, but that's not with the intent of denying a claim, it's with the intent of gaining the information to make sure we can pay it legitimately. Yeah. Our claim seems pretty great. So speaking of, do we have time for me to go through some crazy stories?
Oh yeah, by all means.
Okay. So none of these are intended to scare you. I just I just like to tell some of these wild stories so you can actually see visuals. So what you're about to see are real claims. These are real claims photos that have been submitted to Safely. So the first one we're going to talk about is, remember I was talking about pups gone wild. So uh pet damage. This top one, these are the real quotes from the property managers too. The guest dog damaged the bathroom wall or the bedroom wall. It wasn't too bad. It was about a $500 wall repair, but the dog was very strong, was very strong. And then this other poor dog, I guess it was really stressed out. But they said the dog enthusiastically redecorated the carpeted stairs. This poor animal, but, so like I said, animals can do some strange things in homes. We've seen there's so many more than these, but these are the ones that kinda stood out to me, recently. And then we call this anger issues. Um, Quite a few of those. I like the one right in the center, how the property manager decided to really showcase how this is what a fist looks like, and this is what we think it looks like. And I mean, we've got the broken mirror over here to the bottom left, and then the shower door. I actually just saw another one just like this come in this morning of the shower door. I think they're just being really rough with them or something. The the top right hand, they accidentally put their hand through the window. I've never done that. I don't know how you do that accidentally, but like I said, we don't care whether it was intentional or accidental, and this is kind of a showcase. Any of these could have been intentional. Any of these could have been accidental, so we don't really question that. We cover it whether it was intentional or accidental. And then breaking the door frame in, we've seen that actually more often than you would think too. I guess this happens sometimes when, guests can't figure out the key, and they end up just breaking into the home instead. Um, so that happened, and then this
They
last
should use door codes, right?
yeah, yeah. Yes, they should. Door codes are yeah, door codes maybe. We don't require you to use door codes, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I
They should prevent that from happening, right? Just
Yes, unless they forget the door code, you know?
yeah.
So speaking of remember how earlier we talked about stupidity or vacation brain? Before I show you this next picture, I just wanna give you some context. There was a group of people who, decided, "We're craving crab. We're gonna go buy about 7 or $800 worth of crabs, like whole crabs, and, let's go back to the place," and they couldn't find a pot. I guess they couldn't find, like, a pot that was big enough for all this crab that they were going to boil. So instead of, using multiple pots or going and buying a pot, they decided to do this in the hot tub. So they thought,
Nice.
let's have a crab boil in the hot tub. These are real. This is a real human. These are real pictures. And if you notice, they actually attempted to season it. At least they were trying to add some flavor to their crab. Um, but yeah, this really happened, and what's weird is this is the second time I've heard somebody do this. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was doing a session for Safely, and a property manager told me that this happened to them. I believed it, but I didn't, and then a claim just like it came in for us. So, yeah, people do weird things. So we cover anything from the mundane stained towels that where people dye their hair on vacation, all the way to a crab boil in the hot tub. Um, so we like to say that Safely was not responsible for the demise of any sea creatures in the making of this claim. Um, so there you go. We've got so many more stories than that. But leading into this, well, go ahead, Andrew. You look like you might want to say something.
It's it's unbelievable. At the same
Yes.
time, I'm glad that you share 'em because, like, I hear stories all the time as well, right? So I get many
Mhm.
property managers that reach out to me. You won't believe what happened. I usually say, "I will," because anything that is possible, right? Because we have millions of people booking all the time, right? So it every now and then, you get someone that doesn't have common sense, and many of the things that you show, they're related to common sense, right? So some of them related to the dogs, for example, not about common sense, but at least they took with a good mood, maybe because they were insured, right? So
Yeah.
they were joking about the redecoration, right? That the dogs did,
Mhm.
but is always, I'm always hearing stories, about that. And regardless of the channel, right? It's not only for direct reservations. It you know, it comes, with the profession, right? So it is part of it, and I believe that's why property managers that use insurance,
Mhm.
they seem to be more professional, on property owners' eyes because of that kind of thing. A property owner could flip out, about it and say, "Hey, uh, I'm not allowing my property, to be in the market anymore. If this is the way you're going to leave that to me, right? Or the
Yeah.
damage to cover that." And so it could be a commercial issue, right? So I'm laughing because I'm seeing, this becoming a friction. W- You talked about the gas side of friction, but there is also property manager, property owner kind of friction, right? The
Yeah.
B2B kind of relation, that can damage because of that, right? Because then the property owner may think like, hey, you don't care about my property, I'm taking it away from you, I'm doing business with another property manager, right? So
Yeah.
you laugh just because, they seem so ridiculous, sometimes, but at the end of the day, is a reality, and it's something that affects everyone, right? In a terrible way. So,
Oh,
so
absolutely. You brought up a really good point. So I'm a as a kind of deeply my background really is deeply in customer service. That's just kind of who I am. My whole career has been kind of centered around that, and it's blossomed at Safely, but my roots are really that customer service, and something I have learned over time as a customer service professional, which is you can actually turn a bad if you have a bad situation at your workplace, no matter what industry it is, and you as the person who is taking care of the customer are able to turn it around and turn it into a positive, sometimes these bad situations can actually create more loyalty with your homeowners or with your customers than they would have if everything was always smooth. So imagine you have this kind of a disaster with their stairs, right? And your homeowners are like, "Oh my God, you let a dog in my house. How could you let this happen?" And you can say, "You know what? I am so sorry that happened. But, I as a professional, I decided at the very beginning to get this insurance. So and I'm sorry, I know it's a big deal, but, I'm gonna take care of it. I've got this Hostaway by Safely insurance, and I'm gonna take care of this." And what that does is it makes them trust you more, right? And I'm not saying every homeowner is that rational, but I'm saying that just over years and years and years of experience in customer service, over and over again, I've seen customers return and become more loyal from a bad because of how you behaved, and they were able to mitigate a bad situation. So that's something that you kind of sparked in me as well. So I guess, oh, then that leads me into what happens when something goes wrong. Right? So we've been talking about how easy it is, to file a claim with us. It really is that simple. You saw those pictures, you just have to take pictures of the damage just like the property managers you saw in those pictures. Um, you're gonna enter some claim details right within your Hostaway account, attach the pictures, you're gonna attach your invoices and estimates that you've gathered, and then we process the claim, and that's it. It takes you more than 5 minutes to take your pictures and gather your documents, but once you're in there, it takes you 5 minutes to actually just file that claim. Um, so and that this is actually kind of what it looks like. So you log into your Hostaway account, um, and you go into the dashboard, you click on view claim, and that's it. It's that simple.
I can show more. I have here a dashboard open, right? That I,
Yeah.
I I can share with.
Let me stop sharing so you can show that because I think that'd be more exciting to see it live if you have it
Exactly.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, I always keep it live. Yes, the whole idea is to have it in an easy way so people can find, the things that we are talking about, on their own dashboard, right? So if you come here to insurance, this one, of course, is a test account, right? So, but it's already rolled, right? As you can see, but you can deactivate the coverage. You can activate from here. You can also see, some of the information regarding content, deductible, dwelling. If you have more questions, we have Amanda here that can provide you additional information, the cost per night. And here we can see the benefits, coverage details. So we have some specific articles that you can spend more time, besides this session here. Of course, you're welcome to ask any questions here. You can read later, right? Another thing that you can see that it is deeply incorporated into the product, right? So it's not only what you're seeing from the insurance section, right? But if you go to the reservations, of course, you might have to select here the column that you want to see, right? So then you can select the column insurance to be displayed here. And I pre-selected here because I knew we would be talking about. And if you click on filters, you can see insurance, right? And insurance, you could filter your reservations based on covered, not covered, any. Why not covered? Let's say, for example, you start your insurance today, right? The reservations that were made in the past, they're not covered, right? So that's why there is this kind of distinction, right? So if we open one of these reservations, you can scroll down to the insurance section, right? Which is at the end here. And we can see the information on that specific reservation, right? So all the actions, everything that Amanda was explaining here on filing a claim, you do it directly from the reservation. So it's not like you have to go to many places, open different websites, and go through different systems, right? It is fully integrated here. So you can file a claim, you can monitor the outcome of the claim and everything from here, directly from the reservation, right? So it's a very easy and quick way, right? And like Amanda said, 60 days that you have to file the claim, right? So it's not like, hey, the guest just left and then the cleaner found out, and then by the time my management team, reported that to me, okay, so it was too late to capture the pre-authorization. Let's say you were using a pre-authorization, right? So with 60 days, you have a window of opportunity here, to file the claim, collect all the evidences that you need, right? So then you file just once and you get paid right away, like 98% of the cases, that just go straight forward because it is evident, right? That what happened, what was very clear, right? And so yeah, it is easy to implement. You can just click here on insurance, and you can see additional information from the reservations. The page that Amanda was showing, it was here, right? So you can also find the information here in the listing, right? And then you can go to Hostaway Insurance. So it's another way to get to the insurance section, right? So if you're seeing insurance section, it's because it is available in your country, right? Some countries that's not available, we don't even activate that. And by the way, Amanda, I got some questions here, from Canada, right? Thank you for the questions. I got at least two specific questions from Mike, from David, about Canada. Do you have plans to offer this service here in Canada as well?
Yes, they are in the plans. I don't have a timeline for it specifically. We have been actively working with underwriters in Canada, and working on licensing there. Every area is every province is quite different from each other. So we're kind of navigating which which one to start in first, right? But I imagine that we would launch Canada and EU, and Europe probably closer around the same time as each other, based on what I'm seeing happening on the back end, without giving up too much information under my NDA, if that makes sense. But that's what I can tell you is that we are actively working on it on both Canada and EU.
Mm, thank you.
And New Zealand, Australia too is in the works.
Awesome. Awesome. Great to know. I have some questions here about the cost of the insurance. Is it a percentage of the booking? So
Um, it's a nightly rate. So you get 12,000 so you get $3,000 in contents coverage. You get uh 12,500 in dwelling coverage, and that does have a $2,500 deductible. And for that it is $10 per night. If you don't want to cover Airbnb or some of your other booking channels, it's an extra $2, so it's $12 per night.
yeah, you
So
can find additional information if you hover here,
exactly.
right? So all the information is here.
Mhm.
And you can reach out, right? So at any time, if you need additional information, you can reach out to us. Actually, that's a good point. I'm going to share here, as always, right? I'm sharing a form here for additional assistance, just in case you would like additional information, not only about what we're discussing here today, right? But of course, if it is insurance, you just check the box here. Just please provide your email, your account ID, and your name so that we can reach out back to you, right? So if it is more technically, related to the insurance, I may share with my friend Amanda. If it is related to Hostaway, I have some friends on the CSM side, that can reach out to you. It could be about a training or something. So I'm sharing here in the chat. Let me share here. Where's the chat? So many things, so many windows open, that when I need one. Okay, here it is. So please provide me the information. If you are new to Hostaway or wondering where to find the account ID, you go to settings and account ID. Okay. So now one of the things that we talked. I'm sorry, Amanda. Do you have another content that you would like to go over? Because I would like to show more about reviews, and how this can get impacted here. Do you have more content
Um,
that you would
I
like to
think
go over?
I think the only thing that we haven't covered yet is how they get started, if they don't have insurance. So I'll take just it because it's so easy. I don't need a whole lot of time, and I'm
Take
a
your time. Take your time.
yeah. Yeah. And because I have the screenshots, not the live, but it is this simple. So if you guys are ready to get started and we're covering your area, all you have to do is click on that insurance tab that Andrew showed. You select your coverage, your channels, you provide your info and your start date, and you begin coverage. And that looks like this. You just go to your insurance tab here. You'll see some information about Safely. A lot of the stuff we went over today, a lot of that information is in here. You click the sign up button, and then you're just going through the screens and you're selecting you're reviewing the policy information, and then you decide whether you want to cover all channels. Now, I will recommend covering all of your channels so that we can reduce that all of the guest friction across all of your channels and really protect those guest reviews that Andrew, I believe you're about to talk about. And then you're going to give us your information so that we can make sure we have all of your all of the information, or who we're covering here. And then you're covered. That's it. You're basically, after you sign up, you're covered as early as the next day for new bookings. So and then you'll start seeing your reservations in here covered. And that's it. That is it. That's all. It's so simple. And that's all. So Andrew, that's all I wanted to talk about
Okay,
from my side.
so let me show. Okay, so I see Frank asking if it is 10 or 12 per night book. It depends, right? So if you select all channels, it's 10, right? So if you select specific ones, then it will be 12, right? So, okay, another question here. Can you send the directions on how to add it to a booking? You cannot add to a booking, right? So you either have it activated, right? And then that's why we have the covered ones, right? So it's not added. You activate insurance, and then moving forward, every single reservation that comes in, it will be covered, right? All the reservations in the past, you cannot add. And when I say in the past, created in the past, even if the guest hasn't stayed yet, right? It could be an upcoming reservation, but it was created in the past, right? So in that case, you were not insured at the time that the reservation was created, right? So you're insured moving forward. So only new reservations will be covered. All right. So you don't apply to the existing ones. Okay. I got Richard here asking, I don't see an insurance tab. Very likely because you're not in US or your listing is not in US. Richard, if that's not the case, by all means, please go over the chat, and fill out the form. It 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 could be that it was a mistake, right? So someone can activate for you. Maybe you are in US for whatever reason, someone deactivated, but it should be available in your account, right? So very specific, unless it is a very very specific case, right? But as in general, yeah, it should be available.
Um, I'd like to take Frank's, next 2 questions, if that's
Please,
okay.
of
Um,
course.
yeah, so Frank, you asked 2 questions. You said, "Okay, we only activate it for bookings we want on new reservations," and then you also asked if we can ask the guest, if they want it ahead of time. So the answer to kind of both of your questions are sort of no. Um, to backtrack a little bit, safely is once you activate it, we're required on all of the newly booked reservations for all of the booking channels you chose. So the reason that we can cover intentional guest damage and not just accidental is because the guest is not opting in or out. You're the insured party, not the guest. So they're not choosing whether they want it or not. It's just built into the reservation. So you can choose which channels you want to cover, but you can't pick and choose which reservations you want to cover. Um, And, will it cover bookings through our website? I'm gonna let Andrew answer that one because you're familiar with the technology side.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
does. Right?
Okay.
Yes, it does. It does. Right. So if you select insurance, any one of the channels. Okay, so let me share again. Page just to be clear.
And while you're pulling that up, Richard, you said that you're in the US. One little footnote as well is that we're not covering New York State or US
Oh yeah,
territories. So
that's true. Yeah.
that might be another reason why, but still, as Andrew said, fill out that form if you have homes in other areas, in the US, outside of New York, and outside of US territories.
You see, if I had to select, right, instead of selecting here, right, on let me see if I'm sharing. Yes. So this one has already been enrolled, right? So, but I can still edit the the policy, the channels, personal details after it's been created, right? Same thing when you are still enrolling into the product, right? So here we can see, for example, additional, and then you can remove, and then you can customize which ones would you like to cover, right? So then it would be an additional 2 per night. So if you don't select that, it means that every single reservation that comes to your dashboard is covered automatically, right?
Mhm.
Another common question that I get, on yes, but how do I pass this cost to the guest, right? So you can, for example, add here on price and fees, you can add a fee, right? You can add a fee. Let me see if this one already has one for insurance. Well, okay, remember, this one is just a test account. That's why it has so many fees here, right? But you can, let me show you. You can create one. And for example, we do have one insurance fee, right? So then you have the option of using a different name because someone has already used one of my colleagues here, right? And then you can add, for example, if you want to offset the exact amount, you could put like 10, right? As a flat fee, right? So, but that would apply only once per reservation, right? So you can add a percentage, for example, or you can say that it would be on the base rate or the entire amount. This would be one way of doing that, and this would work for Verbo, for a direct from Booking Engine, Google reservations. It would work with anyone. If it is with Airbnb, then I recommend you using, any one of management fees, any ones that they accept on their API already integrated, right? Another way of doing that is just adding a markup, to the channels so that you have the base price, assuming that you haven't included that in your pricing, right? I always recommend when you create your pricing, already consider all the factors that are involved in that, right? On the calendar. But let's say you haven't considered, you have already spent a lot of time planning that, you can add a markup just to cover for that, right? So you can put a percentage here and increase your base rate so that you get your cost covered, by that. All right. Uh, what else wanted to show you about reviews, right? So we have this section here specifically about reviews. Like Amanda was saying, the relevance of reviews because of the impact that it gets. We also have another section. Just this one is more to understand the status, right? So this is information that is a huge breakdown, and you can deep dive on the reason why some of your listings can get suspended or have received a warning, and you can even see the reservations that originated that, right? So we have many tools that I recommend you to use. We have review quality. Again, this one doesn't have any warning or anything. And then we also have another section just for reviews. And from here, you can review the guests. You can see what have you received from each channel and everything. And the one that I wanted to show was this one here, right? Again, so how we have an automated review to review the gas, right? We have a 14 days window here, right? So that's exactly the chicken game that Amanda was referring to, right? So people try to leave the automated review to the guest to be all the way to the end of the review window, uh, and use like 13 days, right? So then if the guest leaves a review, you know, then they can pause the review, right? Because we have automations here, right? So you can automatically review the guest. But when you do that, if the guest, you had a bad experience with the guest, you don't want that review, to review the guest and remind the guest to review you, right? That's the worst thing. So then you can stop the reviews from here, right? So, but again, instead of playing chicken, you can play safely, right? And no pun intended, right?
Love it.
And using insurance for that, right? So it is possible. Another one that we discuss here, that since I'm here, that is important to see in the listing is I was here. So refundable damage deposit, right? So if we add here, it will be added on the top of the reservation. Let's say website, for example. It was the last channel someone asked. So it's going to be the full price of base rate, plus fees that you have, plus taxes, right? And the refundable damage deposit. it's going to be on the top of that. So it's going to be a part of the final price to the gas. The other option that you have, it's exclude from reservation sum. In that case, you place a hold on the gas credit card, but that hold can you can keep for between 5 and 7 days. Stripe will automatically release that hold, right? So then again, if you decide to capture or to keep the refundable damage deposit, is when you risk to get a bad review, right? So you are entitled to that. But if you are concerned about the reviews, of getting reviews, and then you don't even charge the gas, then you're going to have to absorb, all the cost of the damage that was caused, right? So in that context, it is important to analyze whether you should use insurance or not, considering that how much a bad review could hurt you, right? And how much would you need to put here, on the refundable damage deposit? Because that's another question that I get asked very often, is like, how much should I put? I don't know how much damage can someone go, right? So if you saw the pictures that Amanda just shared here, you know that the damage could be, it could be very expensive, right? Like a jacuzzi, for example, right? Um, uh, I don't think you could save that jacuzzi, from the picture that you shared, right? So
It's
I believe it has to be replaced, right? So yeah, how much could it be? Like the walls or fire or anything like that, right? So y- it can get very ugly, right? So things,
yeah.
so it is difficult, and at the same time you don't want to be too expensive to the guest, so that you don't get booked, right? Or then you capture the amount, stripe release, and then you're empty handed, right? Okay, what should I do to go after, the damage that was left? So it's a professional rationale here that has to be in place, right? To
Yeah.
understand, okay, let me see what are the professional tools that I can use, you know, to mitigate the risks, like Amanda mentioned, right? And in a way that I look professional in front of the guest, in front of the property owner, right? We have many property managers here. If you're the property owner, your own property, right? Because you want to be sure that okay, you take care of your property in a way, right? And you know that nobody else will take care, as well as you know, about your property. But it's your business, so in that case, you cannot. If you stay, you know, just without renting your house, you're losing money, right? So that's another thing, that many people cannot afford, right? To be there and waiting to collect money, right, for that. So it's good to have someone reliable here. Well, Amanda, we are heading to the end here. I appreciate, as always, you coming here, share your knowledge, share your cases, and helping everybody here at Hostaway, to learn more about the insurance and how to protect their investments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the attendees that stuck around. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. This was fun. I
Yes.
love this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And you're gonna get the recording tomorrow. And I hope to see you next week again. All right. Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.